All right, problem number 2, we're going to determine whether two particular shapes are similar or not. And then if we are, we're going to write the similarity statement. So the two pictures we have in A is what's called JKLM, which is the bigger one, and then we have TUVW, which is the smaller one. Now, step 1 is like we did earlier in problem number 1. We're going to identify the pairs of congruent angles. As you can see marked with the tick marks, or the little circular marks, angle marks there, that angle J is congruent to angle T, that K is congruent to angle U, that L is congruent to angle V, and that angle M is congruent to angle W. And all you have to do is match the corresponding, again, tick marks with those. Then in step 2, we're going to compare the ratios of the corresponding parts. When we start to do that, we see that JK would have to match up with TU. Well, in the picture, JK was 12 and TU was 6, leaving you simplified with a 2/1 ratio. If we compare the KL to the UV, which is what these two are doing right here, in your particular picture, that happens to be 24 to 16, or it reduces to 3/2. LM to VW, which is another one of the sides, the third side, that would be a ratio of 24 to 14, which reduces down to 12/7. And then finally, JM would correspond with TW, and that's 6/6, which ends up just being 1. Now, if we look at these, all these numbers, you have 2, you have 3/2, you have 12/7, and you have 1. Since the corresponding sides here are not proportional, then the polygon is not similar, okay? They would have to be all the same proportion or the same number when it comes to comparing the sides. Now, let's look at example B. Triangle ABC and EDF. When it comes to a triangle, you compare the smallest side with the smallest side, the medium side with the medium side, and the longest side with the longest side. So that means that angle, well, let's first of all look at the angles if we're going to identify those. Angle A would match up with D because that has the double tick marks. Angle B would match up with angle E because that has the triple tick marks. Angle C would match up with F because that has the single tick mark there, or angle mark. Step 2, if we're going to compare the ratios of the corresponding sides, then that means AB, which is the medium side on the first one, would compare to the medium side on the other one, which happens to be DE. So we're really comparing 12 to 15, which ends up reducing down to 4/5. If we compare BC to EF, which is the longest side to the longest side, that ends up being 16 to 20, which again, when we reduce it, becomes 4/5. And then finally, the shortest side with the shortest side would be AC to DF, which is 8/10. And again, it also reduces to 4/5. Therefore, these two triangles are similar to each other because each of the corresponding angles have angles in the other one that match them, and the scale factor for all of the sides happens to be 4/5, or a 4:5 ratio. Since they are all the same, then triangle, and I want you to notice something, triangle ABC is similar, to triangle DEF in this particular one, and that is called a similarity statement. That's the way you have to write them, and the way that you write the letters does matter. So be careful when you're doing that. Let's look at the got it part of this. It says, are the polygons similar? If they are, write the similarity statement and give the scale factor. So when we look at this, now notice that they're both got all 4 right angles. So since all the angles are similar to each other. They're all the same, so they have to be similar to each other. So we know that both of these technically are rectangles, but we compare the small side of the rectangle to the small side of the other rectangle, as well as the longer side of the rectangle to the longer side of the other rectangle. So we're really comparing KL to XY because that's the short side and the short side. And if we do, that is a 10 to 15 ratio, which will reduce because they're both divisible by 5. That reduces down to 2/3. Okay. In the same way, if we compare the longer side, KN, to the longer side of the other rectangle, which is WX, then we're also going to have a 15 to 20 ratio, which that reduces to 3/4. Since these do not match, the answer is no. For A, those are not similar rectangles in this case. Now, let's turn our attention to B. When we're comparing this, we know that angle A matches angle S, angle D matches angle U, T, because of the double tick marks, would match angle E, and then the B and the C are both right angles, just like R and the V are in the other one. So let's check with our scale factor. That means that 12 here is going to compare to 6 over here. Okay, so excuse me, keeps acting up on me. We got 12 we've got 12 over 6 comparing with the other 12 over 6, which will compare to, let me erase this so we can see it. It'll compare 18 to 9. If we go to the other side, that's going to be another 18 to 9. And if we go to the top part, that's 18 to 9. So all the sides, if you look carefully there, reduce down to a ratio of 2. Since they are all the same, then the answer to this is yes. So all we really need to do here is to write a similarity statement. So if I write figure A, B, C, D, E, then I'm going to have to say this is similar to, and again, you have to make the sides, the corresponding angles and the sides match up. So since I started with A happens to be a single tick mark, and then B went to a right angle. So on this one, it's going to have to start with S, R, and then V, and then U, and then T, to make those kind of correspond with each other. And again, this is very important. The way in which you write them becomes very important. Hope this helped.